Shalom Aleichem, everybody. At the end of Parshas Bamidbar and in the beginning of Parshas Naso, the Torah tells us how each time Bnei Yisrael traveled in the Midbar, the Levim had to pack up the entire Mishkan. They had very specific instructions as to how to pack up the various kelim in the Mishkan. And one of the steps of the packing of the Mishkan is found at the end of Parshas Bamidbar, and it relates to the packing of the outer copper Mizbeach. The outer copper Mizbeach had to be packed very uniquely. The Torah says in Sefer Bamidbar in Perek Daled Pasuk Yud Gimel that Aaron and his sons packed up the outer copper Mizbeach. How they do that? First of all, Vidishnu es HaMizbeach, they had to clear away the ashes, and then the Torah says Ufarsu alav beged argaman, they had to put a purple cloth on top of the Mizbeach. That's very nice. The problem is that in Parshas Tzav, in Sefer Vayikra, Perek Vav, Pasuk Vav, the Torah says, Eish tamid tukad al hamizbeach lo sichbeh. A fire, says the Torah, a fire must be kept burning constantly on the Mizbeach. It may not be extinguished. So how could the Torah tell Aaron and his sons to remove the ashes from the Mizbeach and cover it with a cloth? That would extinguish the fire. And the Torah said, Eish tamid tukad al hamizbeach lo sichbeh. So Rashi, in Parshas Bamidbar, based on the Yerushalmi in Maseches Yoma, tells us that the fire did not die out. It was a heavenly fire that came from the heavens miraculously. It never went out. And in addition to that, Aaron and his sons placed a metal cover called a psachter, a metal cover on top of the fire. So the fire did not go out. The cloth did not burn. And that was all miraculous. And that's how the Yerushalmi and Rashi explain how the fire on the Mizbeach didn't go out when Bnei Yisrael traveled in the Midbar. And Rav Mordechai Greenberg Shlita, the Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshivas Kerem B'Yavne, looks at this Rashi and looks at this Yerushalmi in his Sefer Midarkei HaParsha, and he says the following idea that could and should give all of us chizuk during these challenging times in Eretz Yisrael and throughout the world. Says Rav Greenberg, even in very challenging times, even when Bnei Yisrael is wandering on a journey that is thrust upon them, for example, Rahman al-Litzlan, the pogroms, or the massacres, or the expulsions, or the Holocaust, or the painful, heart-rending wars in Eretz Yisrael, throughout all these journeys, there is always a godly fire that burns within us, regardless of the pain, regardless of the suffering, regardless of the existential anxiety that we as a nation feel now and always. That divine fire cannot be extinguished. Lo sichbeh. And Rav Greenberg quotes Rav Hanan Porat. Rav Porat was an Israeli Rav and politician. He, as a child in 1948, was evacuated from Kfar Etzion, and he only came back after 1967. He was a paratrooper that was among the paratroopers that freed Har HaBayis. And Rav Hanan Porat's Sefer on the Chumash is called Me'at Min Ha'or, and there on Parshas Bamidbar, he says the following: that fire that cannot be extinguished even during painful, challenging times, that is the same fire that appeared in the sneh to Moshe Rabbeinu when he was a shepherd in Midian. And it's the same fire that we saw together at Har Sinai when the Torah was given. That fire cannot go out. And it's the same inextinguishable, irrepressible fire that blazed in the hearts of Jews throughout the ages who were Mekadei Shem Shamayim in fire. Avram Avinu, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, Rabbi Hanina ben Trajan, all the way to those murdered and cremated in Auschwitz. They were all thrown into fires. But it was the fire of Eish Tamid Tukad al Mizbeach Lo Sichbeh. It was that Eish Tamid in the hearts and souls that could not and will not be extinguished. And it is that inextinguishable, indestructible fire that we draw upon now, even as we are under fire here in Eretz Yisrael and throughout the world, all day and every day. And we daven that HaKadosh Baruch Hu enable all Jews to live safely and securely in our homeland and wherever we live. And we daven that HaKadosh Baruch Hu enable all soldiers and security forces to return to their homes safely. And we daven that all Jews, wherever they are, gain strength from the divine fires that radiate in us and from us. In Mitzvah Hashem, those fires will never, ever die out. Have an amazing day. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu give us all strength to endure this latest nisayon that He's sending our way.